here we are with Sage Emery, who is therapist for families and marriage therapies and for families as well. As well, you've worked as a conflict facilitator, trained in process-oriented psychology approach, and you as well work as a shamanic teacher. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I want to thank you, Carolina, for doing this interview. And I'm really looking forward to it. We already have a great time online with each other. So thank you for creating this.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, I do. I'm a marriage family therapist. I have a private practice. I teach internationally in many countries. I've taught with my partner, Gary Reese, for about 15 years internationally, assisting him in process-oriented psychology classes. And I teach my shamanic exercises that I've been trained in.
Okay. You mentioned earlier when I spoke with you that you do not call yourself a shaman.
No, I want to respect the tradition of shamans. That it's a tradition that gets passed down through the generations and through through the tribal community. So my understanding of shamanism is that those of us who can travel between the worlds, this world and the other side, and that we believe that the other side of spirit contributes to your daily life and the problems in the psychology and the emotions, that I do. I travel, and that my training comes from spirit, from the ascended masters. Through my shamanic experiences, they give me training and techniques that then I can bring out to the rest of the world to teach other people how to move between the worlds. And I also consider myself more from the goddess tradition instead of like Native American or First Nation people, that I am more from the goddess tradition, and it is a connection to the earth, and there are many similarities, but I don't call myself a shaman, but I do teach shamanistic exercises.
Mm-hmm. Right. So your round is in psychology, you already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And you said before, prior to this interview, you mentioned that you have lived in a spiritual community?
Yes, I lived in a spiritual community all through my 20s. So I'm 50 now. I've been on a very serious spiritual path since I was 20, so the last 30 years.
Mm.
And I've gone through different major religious traditions, and now I'm deeply spiritual, deeply psychological, and I don't follow a religious path any longer like when I was living in a community, but I really have integrated the essence and the mysticism from many spiritual paths and traditions.
Mm. Okay. Psychology and shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Why these two?
Because they go together. They're so integral. Shamanism, spirituality, psychology. For me, it's all the same path. The reason we come here on this planet is that we set up life experiences for ourselves so that we can heal, which is part of our spiritual evolution. So it's my belief that we set up situations and circumstances so that we confront those experiences, and through the confrontation of those experiences and the difficulties, actually the challenges of them, we're forced to work on our minds and our emotions and move out of any concept of ourselves as being victim, and know that our spiritual truth is that we're not victims on any level. We're not a victim in our minds. We're not a victim in our emotions. We're not a victim of what happens to us in life, because ultimately we're quantum beings. We live in a quantum universe, and our experiences are outpicturing from us, and that we all came here to this planet to be here during the ascension of the earth, and that we want to be able to transition with the earth. And so in order to do that, we have to heal on all levels: our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, and our spiritual body. And so all of those work together with psychology, shamanism, spirituality.
Okay, thank you. So these workshops that you're coming to do in Edinburgh, what type of people should consider coming to this workshop?
Well, there are two different workshops that I'm doing. The first workshop that we're doing is the work with the DNA. So that workshop, I would suggest that really anybody can come to that workshop. It's designed to have very practical exercises. They are shamanic exercises, and they're exercises that if people are used to going inside and doing inner work, it will be easier for them. But I have found that the tools that I give, we're going to be learning how to cut cords between people, between your family members, that Spirit has said that anybody you've ever had an intense emotional relationship with, your family, your parents, lovers, friends, bosses, and especially if you're somebody with an open energetic field, you have a tendency to connect and cord into many people. And then those cords are like telephone lines that hook you into different emotional patterns, and emotional patterns that go all the way back to your childhood. And in order to go through the ascension, Spirit has said, Archangel Michael particularly, that it's like if you were a balloon rising up through the ascension, but you've got all these cords tethering you and holding you down. So you need to release all of those cords so that you're free to soar. And anybody is really able, I have found everybody's able to do those exercises. We'll also be doing soul fragment work or polarization work. So everybody who goes through this life doesn't really get away with experiences where we have the perfect childhood, a perfect relationship. And any time that our safety comes in jeopardy, if we've had abuse in our background, if we have some time that our spirit has had a lack of integrity, or we're scared, or something's confused, we have a tendency to polarize. And that part of ourselves that experiences the trauma or whatever had happened in that moment that caused the polarization stays trapped in time. It's not just a soul retrieval like when you have a car accident or something dramatic. It can be anything. I had a client who had a really terrible experience that his parents were fighting one time, and they were fighting over money. And the father and the little boy was listening behind a chair, hiding from the parents. And the father said, well, if it wasn't for Johnny being born, we wouldn't have this financial problem. And so he heard that, and in that moment, he fragmented. And that part of Johnny was sitting in that chair, listening to that statement, horrified for years and years and years, and really made it difficult for him to be in his body. And so we'll do exercises of pulling those soul fragments back. Another client of mine, actually I work with today, she was in class when she was in the first grade and asked a question to her girlfriend next to her because she couldn't hear the teacher and needed clarification. The teacher came over and put tape over her mouth. And since that time, she's had a really difficult time in groups speaking up and asking questions because this part of her was frozen in time and still impacts her today. So we do exercises to pull those soul fragments back. And that's very easy because you just have to have memories, and we go into healing processes with that. The third thing we're going to do is work with our DNA. So I have an exercise that the Divine Mother gave me, and she's told me that I'm the only one actually who teaches this exercise. And we work with the DNA strands and open up the DNA and use the DNA as wormholes to go down through and find the ancestral trauma that the ancestors have handed down through generations. And it's also an access to your past lives. So ancestors, most people think that they're dead and they're gone and they don't impact us much anymore. But what Katumia Agrippa has said, who's an ascended master, that your DNA is consciousness and it's alive, and that your ancestors' trauma are coming through and living through your DNA, and that in order to be able to let go of some of these long-held traumas that you may have gone to therapy for year after year, you worked on certain issues year after year after year, and you can't figure out why does it not clear up. It's because your ancestors are calling out through you, through time, through your DNA, to come in and clear and ask for help. And I'm going to teach how to clear the ancestral trauma, or how to go into those past lives and help heal those past lives that are impacting you and keeping you stuck in this lifetime. So that's a very important class that really is designed for very practical tools for everybody to be able to use.
Wow, that was a very intense, big piece of information.
And then we have class 2. Is that okay? Should I go on?
Yes, please.
All right. Class 2 is for women only, and there's a reason that it's for women only. We will be doing a white fire initiation. I work with the sacred flames, the 7 sacred flames, and the ascended masters. And we'll be doing a 9 Stargate initiation. And the reason it is women only is very simple. It's because when I received this 9 Stargate initiation from the Divine Mother, she told me that I was only allowed to give this initiation to women. And it is an empowerment for women. That traditionally on this planet, men have held the power, and that this is a balancing time for us to bring women back into power so that we can have the same balance and distribution of power on the planet, and to bring the Divine Mother back. And my work with the 9 Stargate is to help that balance and to help women reconnect with the Divine Mother. So the White Fire initiation is a very powerful initiation, and I teach breath work and meditations to do on a daily basis that will help you clear your karma and clear the growth from the trauma that happens from past lives and from this life. It's like we build a crust on our etheric field. And as women, we may not have enough power in our solar plexus. And the white fire is meant to clear karma, to burst away and blast out that crust around our etheric field, and to start to heal the cracks and the fissures in our field so that we can be more clear and open up our channels to spirit and hear and to really feel who we are. And then the next initiation is the 9 Stargate initiation. And that initiation, I put seeds of light in each of the 9 Stargates. And that's a deeper healing for your etheric field that helps with the transition from the 3rd dimensional field to start to create the crystalline light body of the 5th dimensional field. So the Earth herself is ascending, but that doesn't mean that humanity is going to automatically ascend. We have to do our work to be able to ascend with her. It's not magic. We don't get to just absorb the fields of light. You have to create a body that can hold the higher frequencies, and in the etheric field that can hold the higher frequencies of light. And there are many, many upshifts of energy that need to happen. We call it, James Tiburon says that channels Metatron, that it's like moving from the old DOS program, the old computer DOS program, and updating into Windows 2012. That have to do the healing work to be able to help that upshift, and we have to be able to install the different frequencies inside of us so that we can connect in with the crystalline grid on the planet, and that we can absorb and live within those higher frequencies, and our consciousness can live within those. But it doesn't happen automatically. So that's what that class is about.
Okay. Wow. So just to clarify, what is it, ascension?
Ascension. Ascension means that you are really becoming the embodiment of your I am presence. Some people say I am presence. Some people say your higher self. Some people say your Christ self, your Buddha self. It is becoming a chalice. Your body itself is going to become a chalice for a 5th dimensional consciousness in your body, which means that we will not be living in duality any longer. You'll be living in a unity consciousness. And duality means that you have a consciousness of separation. You don't know actually that you're part of the whole. And at this point in our history, we've had so much trauma from separation that most people on this planet don't even really know for sure, does God exist? Does God not exist? Are we part of everything? We don't feel like that because in our daily life, we experience duality moment to moment. We experience suffering. We get into fights with our family members. All of our unconscious shadow material comes up constantly and causes trouble and wreaks havoc in our life. And that's really duality, all of the wounding from childhood. When you ascend, all of that process is cleared out of you. The ascension happens after we've healed 51% of our karma, and that we have these higher frequencies of light, and that our higher selves can then drop in. Our ego makes room. We heal it. You can love your ego. No longer runs the show, but your spirit is actually running the show, and that you live in a unity consciousness, knowing that there is no separation. And for people to be able to do that, how can you ascend on the planet if you actually don't even really know if God exists? And how do you bring the ascension knowing that you are God if you don't know that you are God within yourself? And so the ascension is really understanding that unity and God consciousness mean that we come to a place where we know, we really, really know that we are divine creator beings in every part of our being. And that that's what we're doing on the planet, is to learn how to work through separation and embody the divinity within yourself.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. My brain is already burning. Boiling. Right.
And it's happiness.
And it's what?
Great happiness. No more suffering. Happiness.
Yeah, it's. I have to say, it's difficult to embrace a vision like that it's possible, because not everyone is even aware that you can, work toward ascending yourself, or however you express this. And so, is it important that certain amount of people will clear out 51% of their karma at this year, or within, 10 years?
It's actually not going to happen this year. This is the year that the Earth herself is ascending. Humanity is actually, it's going to take 300 years or 15 generations. That's what the Ascended Masters are saying. That there is, we call it the first wave of us who have come to the planet, that there's a large portion of people who are going to set the trail or blaze the trail. And then it may take another lifetime or two for people, but the work that you start now is contributing. But I have to say that the Divine Mother has said that this is a time period of grace. That we have light frequencies on this planet helping us that we haven't had in 13,000 years. We have more help from the Ascended Master realm, more help from the angelic realm. We have thousands of people on the planet now that are opening up their crown chakras of spirit. People are noticing that they're more intuitive. They're thinking more about psychology. They're more invested in their healing, that there's a possibility of change on the planet. It doesn't mean that everybody will ascend, but in order to ascend, you absolutely must make a commitment to yourself. And once that commitment is made, once you say, I am here and I really have a desire to ascend, then you will have all the help you need. And it doesn't take as much work as it used to. In the time of Buddha or Jesus, when the frequencies of light were so much darker on this planet, it was extremely rare for people to be able to wake up. That is not so now. We have the grace of the light frequencies, and there are certain sacred geometric structures on the planet now that haven't been here since the time of Atlantis, that are helping people, that are making it much easier. The crystalline grid has been reactivated on the planet. There's 12 solar sun disks that activate that, and there's all the help from all the different star planets. And that's all very complicated. I won't go into that. But
okay.
I'd say that it's just possible now when it really wasn't so possible in the past.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And who are the Ascended Masters? You were mentioning that you received teachings from Divine Mother, but you mentioned as well Ascended Masters.
The Ascended Masters are beings who have had many incarnations on this planet. They've dropped into the realm of separation and duality and walked on the planet, and they did their work to wake up and to ascend. So there's many thousands of Ascended Masters, and once people wake up, like Jesus and Buddha, but there's also St. Francis of Assisi. In his last life, he woke up and he's Katumi. There's many Ascended Masters, Mary Magdalene and Kuan Yin. They come from all different spiritual traditions, every path of life. And that once they wake up and they cross over to the other side, then they have a commitment in their hearts, because they know how difficult it is for those of us trapped in duality. They have a commitment to help us. And as Ascended Masters, they use whatever tools they can to help us, give us information. They teach us at night in our dreams when we go into their etheric retreats, and we get training there. So they know exactly what it takes to wake up, and they have a commitment to humanity to help us all work through our ascension process and for the earth to wake up.
Okay. Just a funny question jumped into my mind. Can somebody decide that they want to ascend, and then the person is saying, oh, you know what? After, let's say, 1 year of working toward, or, you know, some time of after the decision, oh, you know what? I can't be bothered. So
oh, absolutely.
yeah.
In fact, there are different stages and initiations that really have to go through on a personal level. And I was reading about one of the etheric retreats that one of the initiations that they go through is that the Ascended Master will put you together with a group of people and give you a project to do together with the people who will annoy you the most. So that all of your internal stuff comes up and you have to learn how to deal with it and how to heal and how to forgive and whatever. You know, it's difficult to work with difficult people. And they said many times people run out the door gladly giving up because it's just too much. It's really something that you have to have a commitment to. And the only reason to commit is that when you really understand that it's possible and that why would you want to stay in this cycle of reincarnation and duality for the rest of eternity when you have an opportunity to live in bliss and joy, and that it is an option and a choice that you have to make every step of the way. You always have a choice to go back into duality and stay in the cycle of birth and death. You always have that choice.
Right. Well, it's not so bad here on the earth.
Oh, it's not so bad when you have an easy life, if you have good karma and you grew up in a good home. But what if you live in Rwanda or you live in Africa where people are starving and you're watching your children starve? What if you're living in a country where you have such oppression that you're not able to drive a car, or you're living in domestic violence and you're not able to get out of it because your culture doesn't support divorce?
Yes,
so,
but how my work toward ascension can benefit them?
Oh, that's a good question, because as we ascend, we're all part of a collective consciousness. And as we ascend, the more people ascend, it puts that pattern of ascension into the collective consciousness of humanity. We're not separate beings, actually, even though we believe we live in duality. As we ascend, we give the entire collective consciousness the pathway and the tools, and that they have that, whether they know it or not, in part of their field of consciousness also.
So if somebody have, thinking, oh, should I work toward this? Should I not? I've got the ability because I've got the teachers, I've got steady life. But wait a minute, I would like to benefit some, others through us working through my own ascension. I can actually benefit others on a small scale, like your family, and on the bigger scale, like
and I think what happens naturally, that as you heal your own personal issues, then the natural desire to bring that out to the rest of the world starts to manifest for you. So, for instance, I grew up in a little tiny town in Oregon, and nobody ever heard of the Ascension, and nobody ever heard of Enlightenment. I grew up Christian, but once I started understanding and I started healing myself and healing my issues, and my consciousness started expanding, all of a sudden I knew that this life wasn't just about myself, that I have a responsibility to life itself, and that my desire naturally started to come out, that I have a passion now that if I ascend, I want everybody to come with me. And so part of my desire to teach and travel and do these classes is that I have this burning passion inside of me to give everybody as many tools as quickly as possible to help everybody ascend with me, because the party is more fun, the more the merrier, that everybody comes along. It's not so much fun to do this path on your own. I love doing it with large groups of people.
Okay, so the tools that you mentioned that we will learn during your workshops, that tools, you said but I just want to, highlight that there are tools that we can use at home.
Yes, absolutely. Everything that I teach, that I bring forward, are meant for people to have tools that they can keep, that they can do at home, that they can do with their friends. So, for instance, the Goddess Initiation gives you stand-up movement, breath work, visualization exercises that grandmothers have said. If you do that exercise every day for 3 months, it will be transformative. Then I'm going to teach a Gate of Grace breath work, visualization exercise, working with the 9 Stargates, that again will create another shift in you, that they are saying that it clears out your ancestral line, and for women especially, that you can either grow up and become your mother, or you can grow up and become the Divine Mother. And doing these exercises will help you shift out of those old dynamics that you carry from childhood. And all the exercises with the DNA, I sit at home and I do my work and clear. Every time I think, okay, I'm done, I've done my ancestral work, Katumi comes in and says, okay, Sage, as you continue this ancestral clearing work, and I think, oh, I have more to do. So there is ongoing work, and I keep thinking, all right, I must have pulled all my soul fragments back. And then I have another issue come up that I'm thinking, oh, wow, where did that issue come from? And then I can find more soul fragments. And so for me, I may have gotten to this place where we didn't mention before that I've been invited to be a Golden Temple teacher by the Ascended Masters, and I've been invited to be an initiator by the Divine Mother. And the reason that I've been invited into those positions is because I've spent my time, and I continue to commit my time in healing my own psychology and doing the work on a daily basis. And the benefits are that my quantum field is healing, and my outpicturing is getting better and better. That's because they give me practical exercises that I do, that I commit myself to, and that I give to other people. So, yes, it's meant to be ongoing exercises that are accessible to people.
Okay. It sounds like it's a lot of work, especially for somebody who's just starting. But from what I've experienced already, I've been taught by your assistant how to do DNA cleansing. From what I experienced, it's fun.
Oh,
it's amazing. Fun. It's such a fun. So, what are you're able to go and see life of your ancestors. You're able to become them, and you are not required to go into trance, to take drugs, or you're just sitting on your sofa and it's happening. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it similar with other tools? Are they as well fun?
all of my tools end up being fun. We may start out in painful feeling experiences, but the ultimate outcome of every exercise I give is that you get to experience the best part of yourself. And that's what you integrate afterwards. And that's the motivation, actually, for doing the work. Because at first you're thinking, oh, my God, this is so awful and painful. And at the end you're thinking, oh, my gosh, this is fantastic. I love myself. I love this part of myself, and I love my ancestors, and that part of my soul fragment I brought back. And after the white fire, you're like, oh, I feel huge, expanded, and great. So every exercise is bringing yourself back to the best part of yourself, always.
So you mentioned a bit already, but what are the benefits that somebody will gain after participating and then after practicing these tools for, you said, 3 and then 6 months? What changed in a person's life?
What changes is that you have a concept of yourself as being a person that is run by these fears or limitations, or you may not even understand why you feel so afraid or scared or limited. And I have to say, everybody has fears and limitations on some level, or you wouldn't be stuck here in duality. And the purpose of these exercises, and I have many other classes that I teach that help, but these particular classes, if you stick with it, will free you from those fears and limited belief systems that you live by. And it will bring you into this more expanded, self-loving place that we all actually exist in another place. It takes you really out of the small ego self and helps you to bring that I am presence, or your higher self, more and more and more into your body. And the point is that we're clearing out our physical bodies by exercising and raising your higher frequency, by exercising, by eating well, by changing your psychology, your emotions, raising the frequency so that your physical body can be a chalice for your higher self. And every step that you take towards that goal is going to create more and more happiness, more and more freedom in your life, and the outpicturing of your existence is going to reflect the healing. And it actually happens much faster. I started 30 years ago when the frequencies on the planet were even a lot slower. But after the harmonic conversions in 1986, then we've had a lot more help from the other side, and people are changing. I've seen, people once you make a decision, I've just seen people transform rapidly. Not so daunting. It just takes a commitment and an enthusiasm.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful news. Right. Now I've asked people who are interested in participating to send some questions to you. So I'm going to read some of them. One person asked, how do you deal with, how to help somebody who has issue with eating disorder, with compulsive eating?
Compulsive eating. Okay. Well, their process work also believes that there's a dreaming process behind every body symptom. So we don't really believe so much in a cause and effect, but I can say sometimes in general, sometimes compulsive eating is, it can be several things. It can be an attempt actually to ground yourself sometimes, because people who have had sexual abuse in the background or domestic violence have a tendency to leave and go up into their upper chakras, and eating a lot will ground themselves. Another thing that compulsive eating is a cycle of self-hatred when you're actually looking to learn how to love yourself. And so there's this cycle of suffering and not having your needs met in life, and really needing love or support or self-nurturing or people to love you, and not really believing that it's accessible to you, and so grabbing it through food and bringing food in as a way for nourishment and pleasure that you can't seem to find. And so really what you're looking for is self-love. And as you learn to love yourself and nurture yourself and see your body as a temple, then that can be healed. But those are kind of simplistic answers for something that could be much more complicated. It's also a way to cover up deeper, painful emotions, possibly of shame and self-hatred, so that when those feelings come up and people don't really know how to sit and be present with those feelings and how to heal the wounds that originally started that, then they'll look towards food to cover up those feelings.
Okay. So how person can help themselves? Will something from these tools you offer during the workshop, will that be useful? Anything from that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it depends on which workshop, and there would be different tools used. But all of them, if that's your topic, is the compulsive eating. You also may have ancestors. You may have had a past life where you died in concentration camp of starvation, and you're trying to compensate in this lifetime from fear. Or you may have an ancestor that died of starvation. That's what I'm saying. It could be very complicated. And it could be that that's been a training that's come down from your ancestors, that we don't really deal with our feelings, we eat. And so obesity may be something that's handed down from generation to generation as a way to deal and cope with emotions. So all of those things can be revealed in that class, yeah.
All right. Do you have any take on the time speeding?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think everybody feels that time speeding up. And I know that when I was reading a channeling by Metatron, he was saying that time has sped up so fast now that within 1 year, 12 months, we're actually now experiencing 13 months. And so an entire month has been added to our time frame. And it's helpful because it means that we can get a lot more done if you can manage that time, but it also can feel overwhelming for some people that time is really getting away from them, and they can't really They don't know how to operate as time is moving so quickly. But, really what's happening is when we go into the fifth dimension, linear time will not exist in the way that we're used to experiencing it. We experience linear time in duality and third dimensional time. But when you're in higher dimensions, 5th through 12th dimension, which is what this planet is working towards, there is no linear time. And so what's happening is the time matrix on our planet is starting to shift as the crystalline matrix is coming into place and people are integrating that crystalline frequency in their consciousness. Time is actually going to dissolve eventually. It won't happen in our lifetime, but eventually that's what will happen on this planet.
Are there people already who achieve the consciousness of the fifth dimension?
Oh yeah, there are many people on this planet already who have done that.
So how they experience time if most people around them are still in third dimension consciousness?
Well, as soon as I reach that point, I'll let you know.
All right.
I know that they have memory and that they understand that those of us who are still trapped in third dimensional reality, that they have compassion for that, but they just have that experience because they lived it, and they have an understanding that time is not actually linear. I'm sure that they have both understanding.
Okay. Right. Another question. It actually came up from the conversation. The workshop, sometimes when you take part in some workshops, they are so overwhelming, so intense, and when you come back home, you need space for yourself. Yeah. And I spoke with a young mother who got 2 kids, and she thought that it may be too much at the moment for her. She would love to take part in it, but because everyday life is so demanding that, she will come back home and she will not have energy to cope with what's at home. What do you think about this?
First of all, I want to say I always have compassion for parents with young children. I remember clearly how difficult it is. It feels almost impossible to have even a moment for yourself, let alone to focus on your spiritual life. And I was just reading something the other day that was channeled when Spirit was saying, when we come to this earth, we come with an intention to ascend and to grow spiritually as much as possible. And then we get here, and the reality is that we get overwhelmed with the demands of raising children, of going to work. We're exhausted at the end of the day, and then we just think, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next month, I'll do it next year, and time goes on. And then when you actually leave your body and you look back at your lifetime, and then we're full of regret and remorse and despair at all the plans that we made that we actually didn't fulfill because we let life become so overwhelming. So what I would say with great compassion, I understand that that's true, and that at least when you take a class, you're committing yourself to that period of time. And then you have those exercises, you have that information, and they're like seeds of consciousness that help build over time. And then when you do have time, your life frees up, the kids get older, they go to school, then you still have all that information. If you can't figure out how to do it, you've got it then. I would never give up an opportunity to work on yourself because you don't think you're going to be able to fulfill it when you leave. They're always available to you, and at least it's a moment to say to your higher self, I care about my spiritual life, and I'm going to do something to bring some kind of balance. I'm not just going to become overwhelmed and lose myself completely through my parenting and to sacrifice my existence for my children, because then you just become resentful and feel lost and overwhelmed in life and get stuck in the mundane life of day-to-day child rearing and going to work, which is satisfying for many people, but it's not ultimately satisfying to the soul. And so just to give yourself the gift of a weekend to be able to have the luxury of working on yourself is worth it to me.
Oh, okay. There's so much light on your face that I almost don't see your features. Maybe you can turn to your right.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see. Oh, that's your right. Okay.
I think I did that way because if I get the light is...
Maybe the left then, or the other way.
Well, let's see if I'm facing the light.
Yeah, okay.
I'm more bright.
Yeah.
Let's
You've
see if
got a
I
big
can...
window there, yeah.
Yeah, I have a window, that's the problem.
Okay. Oh, now it's good. Oh, now it's good. Oh. Okay. Right. Another question is if you don't mind answering in a few sentences, who you were before you became sage.
Okay, so who was I when, like, give me a time frame. What do you mean, as a child or as a younger adult or?
Right, because in your case you started your spiritual path very
20.
early. You were 20 already, right? So yeah, probably the question is coming from from the wondering about who person is before they are on their spiritual path. But in your case, you were most of your life on your spiritual path. So
Yeah,
you were first teenager and then you...
Yeah, even younger actually, because as a child I remember on Sundays when we were going to go to church, I would lay on my parents' door in front of their bedroom and I would just wait until they got up because I was so excited to go to church. And I think when I was in college I was taking dream classes and it's sort of always been an interest for me. And I think I just came in with so much determination to remember what my path was, that there's been inklings of it all along. And I think we had this funny conversation about what I do to actually keep myself grounded. For some reason, I'm that up now. Because, I talk about all of this stuff in that question earlier about what do you do when you have life, these demands that keep you from attending to your spiritual life, and it may sound like from this interview that, oh, that's all I do, I just devote myself to my spiritual life, I don't really have all these demands, but I have children, and I have a full-time job, and I have horses. And so horses. The way that I keep myself grounded, that I tell everybody, is I scoop a lot of poop. I've spent years out in my barn twice a day scooping wheelbarrows full of manure. Wheelbarrows full. My muck boots on and I'm out there scooping poop. And every time that I think, okay, I'm going to hire a caretaker and I'm going to have somebody else do this because this is just too much work for me. And then I start to get really ungrounded and the grandmothers come back in and they always tell me, Sage, it's time to go back to scooping poop. And wow. I think actually that's who I am in the background. Is somebody who on a daily basis I have the same troubles in trying to figure out how do I balance family life and work life and spiritual life and scooping poop. But those are the things that have helped me. It's like churning, I don't know what it is. It's the churning of all those struggles. And the place where I learned to control my mind was actually in the barn. When year after year I would think, why do I have to be out here? It's 10:30 at night. We just got home from a long day. I'm exhausted and I have to scoop the poop. Or now it's 6:30 in the morning and why do I have these horses and I have to be out here scooping poop and everybody else is sleeping in their warm beds? And I went through this time period of really suffering in my mind until I realized, okay, I can suffer in my mind the rest of my life, or I can accept that this is an opportunity for me to work on my mind and accept the reality. I brought these horses in. They're my responsibility. I wanted to sell the horses at one time, but I have a friend of mine who also channels, and she said it's the first time we have rescue horses, that these horses feel loved and taken care of and they have a home. And so I couldn't give them up. I take them on as my family, my responsibility. And now it all changed. So now that I worked through all those mental blocks and limitations and frustrations and criticisms, now I see it as, oh my gosh, this is my blessing. I have time to myself out in the barn. The horses are amazing beings. Their heart chakras are wide open and they heal my body every day. And that's the way that the working on the mind and the out picturing changes for you, just through daily living or when people have to clean houses or taking care of their kids, that we can be frustrated and upset with that process, or we can see that this is an opportunity for us to work on our minds and our emotions. Like the Buddhists talk about, how do you calm the mind? And in Hinduism, they say the mind races faster than the raging winds. It's harder to control than the raging winds. That's what I really dedicate my life to. How do I take my daily experiences and see them as psychological and spiritual opportunities for development?
Wow, that's fantastic. And this is something we can learn from you during the workshop?
Yeah, I'm always talking about scooping poop and how my mind
Right. That's great. So you already answered the question. That was the next question. How you ground yourself. Somebody asked, yeah, that's your grounding. Somebody asked as well a question, how about if you can share some most profound experience regarding your development, spiritual growth?
Oh, gosh, isn't that a beautiful question? There are so many of them. I don't know which one. Well, I have two, actually. Well, gosh, there's so many. But so I have, one thing is that I'll say this, now I'm going to be online and sort of exposing myself, but part of my shamanic experiences is that I work with plant medicine. And so learning to heal my body.
Sage?
Yes.
Sorry, I've got some disturbance here. Just a second. Okay, I think it's sorted. Sorry, I just lost connection, but it should be fine. You hear me right?
Yes, I can hear
you. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most profound experiences that I've had actually is most recently, I've had incidents, I won't go into any details, but I had trouble with my daughter, which many of us do, and I actually have heard from Spirit 80% of the people on the planet these days, parents are having problems with their families. So I'm going to say it because it must be a very common issue to have really difficult issues with children these days. Mm-hmm. And the legal system got involved. And so using all the tools, in order to be able to survive, I really had to be able to use every tool that I've been taught. And my biggest tool these days is forgiveness. I'm on a forgiveness path. Everything about my life is about forgiving the outpicturing of my life. And so learning to put all the people in front of me that my ego mind has perceived as hurting me or I could perceive as ruining my life, putting those people in front of me and doing my violet flame and Ho'oponopono work and looking at them and sending the violet flame through both of our families' ancestors and forgiving them, knowing that I've created all of these situations for my development and my growth, instead of going into a victim place. So that's the most recent thing. And I have to tell you, it really catapulted my development to forgive something that has been the most painful experience of my life, really, and to have radical acceptance of what is, and to forgive every person by putting them in front of me until I see them as pure beings of light. And that's been hugely transformative. The other experience in my life that was hugely transformative was working with the Palestinians and the Jewish people. Because we would go and work in our workshops. We have both sides come in for 4 or 5 days, and they were people, the Jewish people had never sat with Palestinians, the Palestinians had never sat with the Jewish people, and we would have them process their feelings and their experiences and their stereotypes for days after days. And for the beginning, for years and years, I would just go into being in such a rage about the injustices and the oppression, and I would throw up because the conflict was so intense and it would get in my body, and I would be sleepless and tossing and turning for nights after night. And every year I'd say, I'm not going back. It's too much work. I don't like it. And every year the grandmothers would say, oh, yes, you are, because you're not going to ascend unless you go back to Israel and keep doing your work. So I would say, okay, fine, I'll go back. And eventually I would go through the checkpoint and I would sit on the Palestinian side, then I would come back in the Jewish side and I would sit on the Jewish side, and I would go back and forth across the checkpoint, back and forth until one year, I just got it. Something shifted inside of me, and I understood that I couldn't have judgment for either side, because countries, the same as people, are working out their karma. And the people choose to be born in these places because their soul and their spirit needs a certain experience for their healing, and that there are no victims. That there are absolutely no victims. Everybody chooses their situation that they're going to be born in, and their life experiences and their challenges that they're supposed to have, even if they seem atrocious and oppressive, and that it's not their choice on the ego mind. But once I understood that, my whole consciousness and compassion, my heart exploded open, and my compassion in my being for the plight that people have on the planet changed. And that's when the Divine Mother came in and gave me my initiation.
Amazing. Okay. I'm just going to go back. You mentioned about cracks in aura. When somebody have cracks in aura, which from my understanding means that there is some heavy karmic imprint that disallowed the direct connection with the higher self. Is that what it means? Or
when an etheric field is fractured, it happens for many reasons. Your etheric field can crack when you just get into a fight with somebody. Your etheric field can crack whenever you fly in an airplane, because airplanes fly at 35,000 feet. And you guys do meters, but we do feet, so I only know by feet. And it means that you leave the Schumann resonance of the earth, which is the heartbeat of the earth that all of our bodies are attuned to, and that stops at 30,000 feet. So once you raise up above the Schumann resonance and you're in that field above the earth, you have an automatic fracture. So people who fly a lot more than 3 hours at a time have a crack in their field. You can crack your field by all kinds of things. Sitting in front of a computer for too long, having a fight with a boss when you have a conflict with people with more rank and power than you do. People take your energy from you. There are many, many ways. It's not just karma. It's like on a daily basis, people have to learn that they are responsible for maintaining the health and the vibrancy and the vitality and the frequency of their field. And people using drugs and alcohol will absolutely bring cracks and fissures in your field and leave open spaces for other energies to enter into your field. So there are many reasons why, and most people walk around with cracks and fissures in their field and not knowing it, but they don't understand why. Maybe they have a hard time concentrating, or they feel tired and exhausted, or they feel like they don't have the ability they merge with people too easily. They don't know how to have energetic boundaries with people. There are many reasons, and it's very, very important for all of us at this time to learn how to be responsible for our aura and our etheric field and for healing it, so that your energy body can hold the frequency and the vibrations high enough for your higher self to come in.
Thank you.
Welcome.
The question from the list, why are you coming to Edinburgh?
Oh, I'm coming to Edinburgh, the same reason. How do you say it? Is it Edinburgh?
Well, there are a few ways. You can say Edinburgh, Edinburgh, Edin. So whatever you want.
Okay. So I am coming the same reason that I come to any country. I work in several countries. I get an invitation, or somebody suggests that I come, or they come to my workshop and say, oh, you should come to this workshop. And it's networking, the same way that life works for many people. We network, we make connections. People get enthusiastic about my work, and they say, please come, or I have a friend that can organize for you. And the other reason is that I have a deep desire to go to Rosalind Chapel, because Rosalind Chapel is one of the most important places on the earth it's a power spot, that there are 12 solar discs on our planet that help infuse and empower the crystalline grid, and Rosalind Chapel is one of those places where one of the 12 solar discs is there. And I want to go visit Rosalind Chapel to be in that energy field. And so I'll go to Rosalind Chapel.
Great. So, yes. And the last question, who you wanted to become when you were a little girl?
Oh, I wanted to become a veterinarian,
Mm.
which is common for a lot of healers because veterinarians connected, you have a net connection to nature. You know that in some part of you, you want to do healing work, and I have a love of animals, and so that was my childhood desire. So really, what I get to do is healing work, but in a much bigger way than I ever imagined. I get to help facilitate people in learning how to heal themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I hope this is enough of information for people to feed their,
Curiosity.
Thank you so much. I seriously did not sleep enough recently. I'm lucky.
You did a fantastic job of asking.
Oh,
And if
thank
anybody has more questions, they can email me. My email is very easy to remember. It's just Sage Emery, Emery @gmail.com, and they can ask me any question that they want about it.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that's how. Thank you. So that's how we're finishing the interview, the recording. Thank you so much.
All right. So why don't you?